I'm ready to get the most.
How's it going, buddy?
There he is.
Yes, sir.
We'll get this all opened up.
Yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What a good day.
I dock my shark.
What?
My vacuum docking.
Oh, your little Roomba?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be doing it right now.
Good. You having a good day?
Yes, you?
Yeah, it's been a busy day. Busy
Yeah.
week.
I love it.
My hair is getting so gray.
You got the nice waves, everything.
Yeah, just too stressed out, man. My hair's going grayer by the day. Things have been good.
Hey, that must mean that you're growing a lot then, because you're handling
Yes.
the stress well, right?
Wisdom.
Yeah,
That's all.
wisdom,
The gray hair is just my wisdom showing.
Yeah, ascension.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple days. We have athletes going into bodybuilding shows next weekend. So like that's like we're in like the crunch time where it's like you're not gonna lose any more weight, but this is like we're like everything has to go right every single day. Like every macronutrient, every drop of water, everything has to be tracked. Salt has to be tracked. Like everything has to be tracked.
Right.
And it gets chaotic. It gets chaotic. And like we had one of my best athletes, he sent me a video yesterday. He had edema, like his ankles were all swollen and edemaed up. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So then we had to problem solve that.
Wow.
Figured out he was just over salting the hell out of everything he was eating.
Classic.
I was like, he was getting, when he cooked the chicken, he was salting it. When he cooked his food, he was salting it. Then he was salting a bunch of it afterwards.
Wow.
We pulled his sauces out because we always pull sauces out when we get closer to a show. And so he was extra salting to make up for the salt being gone. So the next thing you know, it was just way too much. So we fixed that. So it's the fun stuff you get to deal with.
Amen.
But
I can dig it. Way to lead him.
Yeah, I like it. Like I said, excited to have Tony on today.
Hey, bro.
Ask him a bunch of questions about NLP. I know that you'll have a lot of answers there, which will be fun.
Yes.
The other thing, MER, which is
it's still NLP. It's mental emotional release.
Oh, okay. Same thing.
Yep.
Same category.
Just it's more talking about like the treatment of what can happen. Yeah.
I think it's super effective. Like I said, I was talking about. I think we could all use a little bit of stuff like that going on.
100%. Yeah. We all have those things.
You do it with Parker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Parker's
a few other people.
One example, but he's just crushing it.
He's such a beast.
Yeah, I love Parker.
Yeah, he's got a great attitude, and it's cool too. And like, you have the good attitude paired with like knowing what your values are, so you can be value driven, have a mission statement, a purpose statement, a vision. Like, dude, it's game over.
That's one of those fun questions that you ask people, that like even myself and people like what are your values? And everybody like has an idea in their head of what their values are. They're like being generous and caring and loyalty and stuff like that. And then you actually start breaking it down. It's like vastly different.
100%.
It's like
those are social idealisms.
Yeah.
So like they're like, oh, basically virtues, like honesty, right? Like patience, like just all that kind of stuff. It's like, no. That's not, those are good things, right? But those are not usually someone's values. It's more like dancing or like horseback riding. Maybe it's growth. Maybe it's learning. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's teaching, stuff like that.
Watching TV.
Intimacy. Yeah.
On your butt.
Yeah. Right.
No, actually it's beneficial. Like I said, that one book I was reading, said like the best way to figure out your values is to write down letters to yourself from your family and your loved ones as if it was your funeral. Like basically like what speech would your father give at your funeral? Ideally what you would want them to say, like whether your dream speech that they would give at your funeral, your dream speech your wife would say, a dream speech your friends would say. And like if you can look through those documents, you'll find what you value most comparably to other people.
And I love that. That's a great technique too. And like, so with Abundance Life, like we have like a series from like Dr. DeMartini and then also some NLP stuff. So we kind of pair it all up, and it's amazing what you can find through that. Looks like Tony's getting ready to join us. I will say one thing before we go on with him is that if it's watching TV, I guarantee there's something deeper than that the person hasn't identified yet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's not mine, by the way. That's just, I just think it's.
I know. But any listeners like, oh, that's what my thought is. Like, no. Awesome. Let's see where we can get him.
Let's get him.
The main man with the plan right here.
He's in the waiting room. There he is.
There's Tony.
I like it.
What's up, brother?
What up?
There's no camera.
Got a little peace sign of you. Oh, there he is. Can you hear us, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully my video is coming through okay. I know there was somebody I was just with not long ago, and they were like, man, your Wi-Fi is not great. And I was like, pay a lot of money.
You're moving at like 3 gigapixels a second.
It is definitely lagging a lot.
Wow, that sucks. I didn't know what to do to change it then, and hasn't gotten any better. I have it plugged in too. That's the thing. I have it hardwired.
Yeah, it'd almost be better to like hotspot from your phone.
I could. I know. For some reason, man.
Technical difficulties.
What an opportunity, dude.
Computers are hard, people. I say it all the time. Computers are hard.
For some reason, this part of town seems like it doesn't get as good of signal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and maybe it's because of the hospital or something. They just suck all of the internet
right
from everybody else.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, if we need to, we can have you hop in on your phone, but just me and Jimbo. That's what we have. That's all we need.
Yeah, we're here, baby.
We'll get it figured out. Yeah, we just need to have a tech guy. We have Archie come on the podcast whenever we start an episode, and then he can hop off after we get all this stuff figured out. Like
there you go. Yep.
Archie he'll push the green button and that'll fix it.
Right. Yeah. Dude, speaking of shout outs, this shirt, if it wasn't for the cross.
Yeah.
Boom.
I love it. Where'd you get it?
Kayla Berry.
She's
been making logos, designs. He's got a cool nerd clothing line going, all that kind of stuff. So shout out to Kayla Berry.
Is that his brand?
Yeah, this is him. Yep.
I love it. It.
Super cool.
We're trying to find a new distributor right now. I might actually be going down to Expo in Indy on Friday next week, the 16th. Just because there's a huge clothing vendor expo down in Indy that one of my clients is going to, because he does this big clothing line thing. Wow. So I'd love to go down there because Alibaba has been hell. Like trying to get, we get all of our stuff made locally, and then we decided we want to get some higher end stuff made, and it's so hard to design and get it all done over the computer without having a real interaction. And then on top of that, you're trying to get stuff shipped overseas, and then you have to pay huge freight costs. So it's
I was trying Alibaba too after you mentioned it, and what they sent me, I was like, no.
Yeah. I've been lucky enough that the shorts we got made were awesome, but I've also we had a lot of stuff. We had other samples of stuff we got done, and it was all crap.
Right.
Are we at the double angle?
I think we're about to get Tony in.
Recording in progress.
There he is.
Yeah, that's way better.
Why does it look so smooth on this computer?
It's my phone.
Hey, it looks good though.
It looks beautiful. It almost looks like a better camera than your camera on your computer.
Yeah, it probably is.
I can see Jim in the background.
Oh yeah, what's up, dude?
First time we've ever had a person on the podcast in 2 screens.
Dude, honestly, Tony, this is a better angle and better lighting anyways.
You got 3 times more handsome, just all of a sudden.
I'll turn on the beauty light.
Oh, there we
Ooh.
go.
Now you didn't have to do that, bro.
Jim's gonna get too excited.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm excited to dive into
Now I
so
want
much
to be
stuff.
quiet.
We just tapped into the surface of talking about some NLP and some stuff like that before you hopped on.
Yes.
I'm really excited to pick your brain on some of this stuff.
Let's do the intro. Are you freaking ready? Tony
Yeah.
Moore. So I would love the privilege, honor, and pleasure to introduce everyone to Tony Moore. It's amazing. Derek knows him pretty well too and loves him maybe just as much. Probably not, because I've known Tony Moore since second grade. Second grade, where two little hyper dudes teamed up in life and like started figuring it out the best they could. So it's really cool to just see where we're at today. Tony Moore, after graduating college, he went to Manchester University. He got a degree in exercise science. He completed a term of service as a team leader with AmeriCorps, and like he did a lot of good work with them. I remember watching one of his presentations, and I think that's where his public speaking really just continued to take off. I don't know if it's actually in here, but he was really in theater a lot too. The only play that I ever did in high school was because of Tony Moore, by the way. Like he's like, you have to promise me that you'll do one. And I did West Side Story with him, actually. So he was always amazing, like lead roles, like the Lion and Wizard of Oz, all these types of things. So Tony's always been super gifted when it comes to impersonations and emotional intelligence and just like picking up on how people speak, act, and do things. So I really appreciate that about him. Now, when he started his professional life, like we did the AmeriCorps, and he talks about basically Tony like realized that he found struggle in finding something meaningful and compelling future. Like he had 14 different jobs between the ages of 22 to 29. And then he started the LTD Property Group, LLC, the real estate investing company in 2018 with good old Dakota Bailey. When the business started to do well, Dakota and Tony, they realized that Tony should just quit his job, hoping and start working full-time in the business. And what's crazy is Tony like started doing that. And eventually Dakota left his job too as a successful car salesman when he was, like killing it, like #1, 4 years in a row. But they both continued to just thrive with that. As they scaled their business exponentially over the years, they have now over 60 rental properties with nearly 4 million in equity. The business buys around 10 to 15 houses per month to flip or wholesale. And when Tony isn't working on the business, he's working out of the gym, getting freaking jacked. He's spending time with his adorable daughter, PJ, spending time with friends and family, or headed off to a personal development seminar. Tony is known for his impersonations and animated storytelling. And he also helps people release trauma and baggage using neurolinguistic programming, also known as NLP, and mental emotional release. He is a 50% owner of the Fort Wayne RIA, and he's a guy that just really creates value. So we're super excited to have Tony on here to talk about life and how to become unshakable with the unshakable lifestyle.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction, Jim. I appreciate it. And Derek, actually, I got to know Derek most because he went to the PSI Basic Seminar, which is coming up here soon.
Yeah, get signed up, everybody.
Right away, just plug that.
When is that, Tony? When is that?
The July 28th, 29th, and 30th. It's here in Fort Wayne. It's going to be one of the best seminars you've ever done in your life.
I love it.
At the Grand Wayne Center.
We got some of the Hercules coaches going to be there. So we got some people going. It's exciting.
Name of the abundance life, dude. All of us, like, it's required.
Yeah. I was like, my staff, I was like, we have to have you all do this. It's a must.
Yeah. Amazing.
No, I'm really excited to dive deep into a couple of these questions I have. I mean, obviously NLP is something we talk about all day. It's something me and Jim talk about a lot on here. And it's just like, I mean, to simplify NLP for most people, what would you describe it, Tony?
I'd say it's sort of like the study and science of how we think and how we categorize thoughts, how we categorize memories. And also, one of the presuppositions of it is that it's the way that successful people think. And so if you start to adopt some of the, like, it's basically just an invitation to adopt some of these beliefs. but it got most popular in the 80s, and then it kind of died out for a little while. And now I feel like it's coming back with a lot of personal development and mindset psychology. There are a lot of different people who do neurolinguistic programming, and I think that a lot of it deals with internal representations. Your brain thinks in pictures, videos, symbols, and usually your subconscious mind is at the level of about a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. And so a lot of the more famous ones that people have heard of are like the stopping smoking cessation hypnosis type stuff. Those are the ones that are on the surface, but underneath all of that are tools like anchoring for high level athletes, and a lot of the ways that we talk to ourselves. I think Ed Milet was just talking not too long ago about one tool that he helped an MMA fighter create, and that was just the belief she continually told herself, I find a way to win. I find a way to win. So it's your self-talk.
One thing too, if we could like add on to this, maybe even shift gears, because I think what I've noticed, so I'm in NLP as well, and like I love PSI, and PSI is coming up for a lot of people to come do here in Fort Wayne. We'll probably have ways to do NLP in Fort Wayne in the future too. But with PSI, I think it's really cool that we have Tony Moore here, who is the chief PSI guy for Fort Wayne. Yes. And what's crazy is a lot of people don't know this, but Tony was the most resistant to going to PSI with me in Toronto, Canada. And that's so cool though, because the greater the resistance, the greater the opportunity. And so with that resistance, which it's good to be skeptical, it's good to like really be diligent on things and figure things out. But this guy's due diligence, he goes all in, and now he's one of the biggest advocates of it. So I just wanted to ask, I guess, like, I feel like PSI kind of gives you the awareness of like how you show up through experiential learning, right? And then NLP kind of gives you more tools to fix it, if you will. I don't know what you thought about that, Tony, and see what that leads to.
Yeah, that sounds pretty spot on. I would say that PSI is a little bit more raw and in your face, and it's done in such a way that it's not as forgiving. And so some people are a little bit more scared of it. However, it's still the best thing you'll ever do in your life. And so even if you do have a little bit of fear, that's good, because it means that there's a lot there for you. Like the change is going to be greater when you do choose to go, because you are going to go. And and also the way that I explain it to people is it's sort of like the Matrix, when Morpheus is like, if you take the red pill, then you're going to learn the truth. And like, he says the further down the rabbit hole you'll go, but basically it's an introduction to opening your mind and its massive awareness. Whereas NLP is sort of like, hey, if you would like to change this behavior, well, there's this tool, and in 10 to 15 minutes, we can change the way that your brain thinks about that thing forever. And so they believe that, people will talk about post-traumatic stress and how you accumulate that, and then how the people talk about their trauma and identify with their trauma, and they'll be like, oh, it's just gotten worse over my 40 years of life. I've just become more and more defragmented, and now I feel incredible stress, and it's just so much worse than it's ever been. But what they don't realize is that change can happen in an instant. And that's something that NLP teaches, and something that they say all the time is like, hey, you could have had this trauma for 30 years and I can get it to disappear in 10 minutes with mental emotional release. Or, you could have had this belief about yourself for a long time, or this addiction to a drug even, and it's something that can be gone if you would like it to be. If your subconscious and conscious mind are in alignment, in agreement, you truly deep down want it to be gone, it can be.
Wow. Yeah, that's well said, brother.
Yeah, PSI was one of those things that, like, I think I had the resistance to as well. Like, I actually only went because of Seth Dawson, because he tricked me. Jimmy's found this out recently. I have like a weird fear of people paying for me in any way, shape, or form. Like, literally, you'll see like a weird side come out of me. I get really uncomfortable with it. So I didn't necessarily have the money at the time to go to PSI, because we were dumping so much money back into the business, and I really didn't know if it was valuable or not. So Seth was like, I want you to go, man. I want you to go. I want you to go. I was like, man, maybe. And he was like, He's like, what if I had a way that you could go for free? And I was like, for free though? I was like, okay. Like I thought maybe he was gonna call Tony and, give him the runaround, and then I would get him for free. And then all of a sudden, I show there on the first day of PSI, and Seth tells me, oh no, I just paid for you. And I was like, oh, you screwball. Thank you. I remember going into PSI, my mindset was so, man, I'm going to sell my ass off to these people. I'm going to close so many clients this weekend. I am just going to sell. And obviously that's not what happened. You know what I mean? And I ended up just building amazing relationships. Like literally most of my best friends are from PSI. Like all the people I spend time with, our whole business group is full from people from PSI. Like it's amazing. Anybody who could go should go. It really is. It was so impactful.
Wow.
I really loved it.
Experience. Glad I was going to ask you that. That's beautiful.
Did you feel a shift in that belief too? Did you feel like now you're more open to allowing people to help you?
No, not at all. I just went on a trip with Jimmy. We went, was it 2 weeks ago? And like, we literally, like, I don't know why I feel this way. I feel like so burdened. I feel a burden on people so easily. And I almost do the opposite. I'll overpay for other people. I'm like in my classic friend group, my classic in my family. Like even as a kid with my parents, I was always the caretaker is what I always felt. And even with my friends, I'm always the one, like I bought all the pay-per-view fights and I bought all the drinks and I bought all the food and I bought dinner. And I was always that guy. But we were at the store the other day about to leave for our trip, and Jimmy just tried to buy a couple things at Costco for me. And I was just like freaking the hell out. I was just like, no, Jimmy, no, you cannot. Absolutely. You cannot. Like just feeling like I'm the worst person on the planet if he buys me like 2 things of beef jerky. But yeah, it works out fine. But I mean, something I need to work on. Like I said, I think it goes back to some of my own NLP that I need to be working on. We were just talking about this. I think me and Jim are going to be doing some NLP and stuff with me soon as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the technique is to float back along your timeline to the very earliest memory where you remember actually creating that belief, because at some point your subconscious mind found it valuable for you to believe that it was like a sin to let other people give you money.
Yes.
And so you just have to find that moment where you decided that, and then float even further and higher back from your timeline to the point where you were, 2, 3, maybe even 1, maybe even when you came from God, like
right.
before you were even born. And remember that that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point it was your somehow you decided that.
Yeah, scheme and experience, right?
There's more to it than that, but
100%.
This is where it gets so interesting. We start talking about NLP. That's why I think business people need to work with NLP more than almost anybody. I mean, anybody should, don't get me wrong. But one thing that you find, I've been reading a lot of these books lately. The book I'm reading right now talks a lot about how if you look at people who are successful in business, almost all of them are super filled with trauma. And it's because of the fact that in order to be successful in business, you have to be capable of taking on immense amounts of stress well. And the only, not the only people, but most people who can take on immense amounts of stress well had grown through some path in their life where they learned that, high levels of stress might just be a part of their life. So that's why I think business people don't understand. Like I remember as I grew through business, I remember, and it's becoming more apparent to me now as things get around, where like you're just always goal chasing the next thing. You're always like searching for value. You're always trying to find your value in like the propositions and the growth of the company. And then like you get to the next goal, and you never find it along the way. And that's like when you start thinking like, oh, maybe there's something way back when that I need to figure out, because I don't think that even if this business was worth $1 million today, I would feel the way that I think I would.
Right.
Yeah.
I think something really interesting too, like this is like a 2-part thing, but exactly what Tony said already too, just like on going back to your subconscious and doing a timeline of your experiences and like what led to that belief for you. Cause it's really your BS. I'm not talking bullpucky. I'm saying belief system. Right. And so when we find that, like that was formulated through trauma, through stress, through what you believe about yourself. And so I think it's so interesting too, like you identify that, and then you can identify a different meaning from it too. Cause it's like, wait a minute, when someone gives to me, like when I actually receive, I am letting them bless me and it's giving them something. It's like, oh, right. And it's like, just changes the whole energy. Cause like you let me like help at Costco and then a little bit too at like Kroger or something. So like you finally like you submitted to that for yourself. Yeah. And like, that's crazy. Cause you usually like, no, I have to be the man to like provide for my friends and my family. Right. As opposed to like, wait a minute, like Jimmy freaking loves me and he wants to buy this for me. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Jenna's yelling at me as we're going through it. And she's like, he's trying to be nice. And you're ruining it.
He's trying to be nice.
He's trying to be a good friend and you're being bad.
It's amazing though.
No, it is.
What I used to think too about like people who were successful is that possibly, so the voice, you know, usually you create some sort of subconscious belief about yourself that starts with I am, and it's your subconscious way of protecting you. And so you kind of need to like figure out what belief you created about yourself that's not true, but that you created to kind of get through life. One of them that I created is I'm not good enough. And I think that a lot of people who end up being really successful have that same belief. Like they created one of 7 usually. There are some like, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not good enough. And so I thought that maybe it was that belief that made me want to succeed consistently, because if I'm not good enough how I am, then I need to continually prove that I'm good enough by doing things that are impressive enough that the people around me will be like, you are worthy of love now that you are good enough because you continually succeed. And then when I did mental emotional release, I sort of let a lot of that go and realized that no, it's still sort of part of me, no matter what, to want to accomplish, do great things. And I feel a lot more congruent and at peace and that sort of thing. One of the things that they say in with mental emotional release is it's never too late to have a happy childhood, which for some people, you know, they would hear that and be like, F you, dude, you don't know what I've been through. But I guess we could just change it and say it's never too late to appreciate your childhood. It's never too late to be thankful that you went through some hard things.
Right. Yeah. Like change the meaning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually what I pulled. I mean, that's just kind of congruent with what we're kind of talking about here. That's actually like my entire message I pulled from PSI. Like that, literally what you just talked about. Like everyone pulls a different thing. Everyone pulls a different thing. For me, like I came out of PSI and I realized that I had been villainizing people in my life, including my parents more than anybody, for like my whole life. Like if someone said like anything about my mom, like I'd immediately be like, oh yeah, my mom who used to be a drunk and used to be bad, and like, oh, like her story that came out of my mouth always started with like all this, and that's how I described my life. Like, oh, my grandma had to raise me, like it felt like all the time, and like I'm talking about my dad, it was the same thing. It was just like just all this stuff, and those things might not have been all been false, but like it was like I never told anybody like, oh, my parents never let me go hungry. Like, oh, my parents love the shit out of me. Like my parents literally like my parents did fill me with like, did their best to fill me with confidence and like take care of me. We always had everything we need. Like those were never the things I talked about my childhood. It was always just like the victim mentality and like villainizing them for putting me there. And like, I came out of PSI, I remember like literally going to my parents after that and like telling them like, hey, like you might not need it, but like, I forgive you. Like anything you think, like I forgive you, and like because like you are not a villain in my life, like you are like my loving parent. I don't need that. And like that's why I think some of these times these things can be so like beneficial, because I didn't even know that was a problem. I literally didn't know that I had that issue. Like I didn't realize till I was there at PSI, and all of a sudden it just like snapped and I started crying for like 30 minutes straight, and like wow there it is. Oh, Dad. No, it's really interesting. Like I said, like as you guys have done so many more levels of NLP, did you find that you can use NLP on yourself very often, or do you almost always need a partner?
Both.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I say both.
You can do it yourself, but it's better if somebody else does it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it's like, it's so funny how our brains work. Like you can literally talk to yourself about how you're going to trick yourself. It's like, dude, your brain hears what you're saying right now. but you can still trick yourself. Like what? And so like, I'll notice myself like looking at where my eye patterns are. But when I start doing that, I'm not natural anymore. So if I look like a strategy, one of those is eye patterns. So if I like look up and to the left, like when you look at somebody and they look up to the, like for you, up to the right, that's visual remembered versus visual created, and then auditory digital, all these types of things. And like, based on those strategies, it's like, oh, they're going to that place in their mind to create their response. And so like, there's been a lot of people, Scotty, who actually showed us PSI. I got to do this, the strategy session with him. And like, there were so many times where he was going to visual, remembered versus visual created on something. It's like, we just switched some different things on his strategy. It's like, no, like you're capable. Like you are valuable. Like one of his beliefs is that he was not lovable. It's like, bro, like you're so lovable, right? But we all are, really. I mean, God loves us so much. So it's like, how can you argue with that? So it was just so interesting that like, yeah, it's very helpful to like do it on myself and be aware of how I'm showing up. Yet if I want a true like super powerful intervention, it'd be good to call Tony and like us practice on each other. I remember Tony doing some just different techniques with me on like a cube and like what we created from that and like what that means. So valuable. Yeah. It's definitely awesome to have like that symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. I think like, I guess like it's Tony's a great example of this, because like I think people from an outside perspective would maybe look and go like, well, look at Tony now. Like, look, his business, they netted $1 million last year. He's got everything he could ever want. He's got a beautiful daughter. He's got all this money. Like, he probably has no problems. He probably thinks that he's the best person. Like, he feels so confident in everything he does. He probably like, and then like you said, like that's such an external thought. Like when you're actually in those shoes, like I'm sure like you have just as many problems, if not more, than the average person.
Yeah. I think it's funny too. I just heard Alex Hermosi say this not too long ago. He's like, 3 things that are really typical of like ultra successful people, like billionaires and that sort of thing, and that are sort of vices and like an ego thing, is that you think you're better than everybody else. You think that you're not good enough and that you're not good enough for anyone. And then the third one, those are 2 contradictory ideas that are kind of like parts that you integrate. And then the third one is that you're willing to put things down the road as far as gratification and what you receive immediately. So, yeah, I think when I think about how things look, it's just like, man, I think the reason why people think we're so successful is just that we have been continually putting out social media content. We like consistently are putting properties under contract, and it's like, it's because we're good at solving problems quickly and creating new ones that we then have to solve quickly, and creating more that we then have to solve quickly.
Yes.
Like solving problems with a sense of urgency. And so man, I struggle with emotions quite a bit, where there are some days that I feel really good and some days that I am not feeling as good. I've gotten better about catching it and being like, okay, what can I do right now to get myself out of this funk? The thing that I've been going to most recently is ice baths. I'm still waiting on my expensive one to get shipped to my house. Now that I get,
man, you should. I know you tried to do the tub, but I was ice bathing for like 2 years. Like 2 years ago was when I sold mine, or I stopped using it. But when I was bodybuilding, I would ice bath every morning for like the last 2 years. And I just bought a big chest freezer. And it was only like, it was on sale. It was like $300. And then I literally just used like welders, what is it?
JB Weld.
Plumber's Weld and stuff like that, and Flex Seal. And I went through like 3 cans of Flex Seal and Plumber's Welded this whole thing. And then and you have to buy a special thermometer gauge for it. But all in, it was like $400. And I had like a huge ice bath that I would do every day. I loved that thing. I ended up selling it to Seth Dawson. Seth Dawson's got it in his garage right now.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, those are sweet. I respect everyone who does ice baths, because like I said, at that point in my life, I was the type of person who loved that type of stuff. Like I was a glutton for punishment. Now I'm more of like a sauna guy. Like, you know, like I want to do something where I'm like, oh yeah, that feels good. Like a nice hot bath. I got a hot tub, like, you know, like stuff like that. We're getting a steam shower put in. Like the idea of doing an ice bath, I'm like,
You like the heat shock proteins instead of the cold shock.
Exactly. I want to get the good stuff, but I want to get it from just being like, oh, like when I'm in my hot tub, I'm never like, oh man, this is the worst. Like,
yeah. Isn't that interesting too? It's like, just real quick comment on that too, Derek, is like, that's so beautifully said. I think it's interesting that if you look at like stroke patients with strokes, like a lot of them that I work with, I show them the tracts in the spine, right? One is responsible for pain and temperature, and then the other one is everything else. So it's like you can reach a lot of like neuromuscular reconnection through temperature, and heat is super good, but ice is even better because like when you put ice in, it's like, yo, bro, what is freaking over here? I guess there's an arm there, right? So
that
like,
makes sense.
I'll ask them like, you put a paper Dixie cup in the water in it, in the freezer, rip off the top, you got an ice massager. So like start getting into the tissues and like wake it up because it's cold, it hurts, like, but it's worth it because it's like, well, I've been doing everything. I'm like, have you been icing? They're like, almost everything. I'm like, that's the one once a day. And it's like, I don't know as much of the research like for our lives, but there's got to be something to the one that sucks the most.
Yes.
I have a theory on it. I mean, Gary Brecka says that the cold shock proteins specifically go and look for muscles that need repaired and cells that need repaired, and the cells that are kind of like dying, it's like, yeah, let's just get rid of those and that sort of thing. And so it floods the body with it rids the body of free radical oxidation, which ends up causing disease and that sort of thing. But the mental part of it is if you can do an ice bath and you can slow your breathing down so that you're not so choppy, and breathe all the way in and get a full breath and breathe all the way out and learn to relax in that environment, it's sort of the same as inducing a stress response when, you know, people are messaging you stupid things on Facebook, like some of our properties selling right now, or like your child is misbehaving, or you're having problems with your relationship. And so it's just like, it's the same thing, except it's manifesting itself in your physical body rather than your mental or your emotional or your spiritual body. It's a metaphor. It's like, I'm going to start my day with like a metaphor for like, no matter what,
the hardest,
no matter what hits me, as much as it sucks,
doesn't suck as much as that.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, like only cold will create histamine production.
Yeah.
Heat doesn't.
Like I said, I just think I always used to think it was the best perspective builder, because exactly like you said, like I'd do my ice bath and I would tell people, I go, well, no matter what happens for the rest of the day, I'm not in my ice bath.
Wow. How long did you do it, Derek?
I would do I overdid it. I didn't know at the time, like ice baths weren't quite as popular when I was doing them. It was something I did because I had a torn hamstring and I never got it fixed. So like I just had to ice all the time. And I had a torn bicep too. But I would do it at like 38 degrees, like 35 degrees, so really cold. And then I would get in there for like, I got to the point after like a month or two, and for like 2 years straight, I would do like 15 minutes a day. And what I've learned since is that that's like hypothermic. You're not supposed to.
A little much.
If you go 15 minutes, it needs to be like 50 degrees. And if you're gonna go into like a 30 something degree ice bath, it needs to be like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I just didn't care. That was like when I was a bodybuilder. That was back when I was actually tough. Like now I'm such a pansy. Like it's funny.
I love it, dude.
It's funny how much people don't understand. That's why I teach. I think it's good for people to know how much discipline is a skill set, because like and it's good both ways. Because like I didn't always have discipline at all. Like I earned and gained the skill of discipline to the point where like put my hand in the fire, it's not coming out type stuff. But since I stopped bodybuilding and since I'm not trying to like absolutely kill myself anymore, like my discipline levels have gone down significantly. Like dieting has gotten so much harder, and like working out and stuff like that has gotten so much. I still do them, but like back in the day, I just couldn't care less. I just starved myself and do whatever I had to. Now, like I'm like doing a diet, I'm complaining to my wife. I'm like, this sucks. I want to go to Black Canyon and get a cheeseburger. But yeah, I don't want to change subjects too fastly, but I wanted to pick your guys' brain about something while we have these two NLP geniuses on here. And obviously we have business owners, so that helps. I was talking with Tyler Derrickson this week, and obviously at Hercules, we hired on a staff of people this last year. And going into this year, it's been fantastic. They're all doing really, really well. And I have ran Hercules for almost 10 years now. So that means like for 9.5 years, this business has just been me. Like all the work's been me. All the credit's also been me. All of the everything has been me. And now I have these employees. I don't know if you guys dealt with this, Tony, along the way with your business, but so this last week I had an employee, and he wasn't necessarily, I felt like he was stepping on my toes because he was trying, like there was clients he was trying to work with that I thought could have maybe gone to me, and it doesn't matter and all that. But basically, I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. He was acting like the business was his in a way. And I was getting all fed up. I'm like, oh, you think you fucking run the show? Like you fucking think I didn't say it to him, but in my head, like I'm sleeping in bed at night, like not
internal
sleeping,
dialogue.
imagining my speech I'm going to give him, like, you know how long I've had this business? You know who the fucking big dog is? Like, this is me. Like, and then I talked to Tyler Derrickson. We're having a meeting in the morning. We're together for like 4 hours. And he's just like, why would you take that away from him? Like, what could you ask for more in an employee than for them to take on your business as their own and really want to grow it and like love it and all these things. And I'm like, it's funny how much my ego was attached to this idea of like wanting the credit and wanting all of this stuff. And then I came to the conclusion that like the best thing you could have in business is an employee who takes things on as their own, and really wants the brand to grow as much as I do, like thinks of the brand as their own, right, in a sense. And I feel like there's got to be some weird, maybe not NLP, but just mental block there that most business owners have to get over, like that weird hump of going from like, it's all on me, like my input equals the company's output, to like, it's not all on me and I have to trust these people and they also need credit and they also need to get stuff. And it doesn't make me less valuable in the business if I let other people work. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person's values too, because you don't know exactly where they're coming from. So it's hard to say if it's something that you should like nip in the bud, or if it's something that you need to exhibit more structure, or maybe they need strategy. Maybe they want to see that you're like implementing some sort of new strategy. I think Dakota does a really good job of being the example for people who need that. Yeah. So I'm not at every single meeting. Dakota's at every single meeting. And so there's a certain amount of respect that he gets because he's always there, always being the example. And there are two things we do during a morning meeting. One is we just once a month we do this where we say, okay, 1 through 10, and you're going to speak this out. Everybody in the group is going to speak it about everybody else. And so you just give yourself a rating, 1 through 10. How likely are you to get something done if someone asks you to do it the first time without being reminded? How likely can we trust you? 1 through 10. And then everybody else in the office goes through and gives you a rating 1 through 10 and 2 or 3 reasons why. And then the other one is, how in do you feel that the person is? And so then you go around the room, and inness is, pretty subjective. But what's funny is a lot of people end up kind of finding the same score, like coming to the same score on each employee. So they write down the numbers, and then basically you just ask the person, hey, is there any way that you need supported that we haven't been supporting you? How can we support you? And so just those 3 things to me have changed the culture of our business and allows people to communicate things that they're like frustrated with, or like, maybe his thing is like, I haven't seen Derek at all this week. If he hasn't seen you, then he's going to be like a jerk for no reason because he doesn't understand.
Yeah. Luckily he hasn't been a jerk. He's just been like I said, I guess he's just motivated. Like I said, I know it sounds so bad as a business owner, like, oh, I was upset he was motivated, but it's just like, it was just like, here's a good example. He said statements like, he was like, we're going to turn this into something big. We're gonna make this not about money. We're gonna make this about the clients and stuff like. And I'm like, that's always been like everything you just said already happened. It already happened. I was here for that. But he's just like, he's finding his own values and his own motivation to do these things. So I said, but Tyler was talking about a lot, and it's like one of these things I'm flipping in my head, which is like that the most impressive thing is to be the 70-hour-a-week guy, like working 70 hours a week. And like now, like I said, the people I'm the most impressed with are the guys who make a ton of money and only have to work, 20 hours a week. Like those are the people I'm the most impressed with.
Yeah, I want to comment something on that too, real quick, Derek, because I feel like that's really powerful, and a lot of us are figuring it out now, right? I mean, like same thing with my team with Abundance Life and life coaches, as well as like therapists that I'm training up to do their thing as well. And so I think number one is be a product of the product, like whatever it is. So whether it's real estate or whatever, keep on sharpening yourself and growing yourself. So that's a forever thing. Sure, Dakota, in Tony's instance, Dakota's at all the meetings, but if people were to ask Tony, what he's been doing, bro, that motherfucker is behind the scenes on everything, right? All the analysis that he's doing, the due diligence. So it's just that communication, being that product, it's still there. Number two would be values, right? It's what are their values to be able to communicate and show through these values to synergize with the shared vision, which is number three. So when they can have the shared vision, it's instead of you and me, it's us and we, right? This isn't my business. This is our business. Yes. And in the end, I'm the executive decision maker, right? Yet we all play a huge part. It's nothing without all of us, right? And so with that, I feel we can really all grow. And that's number four is support. So it's ask, just like Tony's example of those meetings. It's okay, here's how we feel we're all showing up. Dude, you're not all in. And it's instead of just, you're not all in, it's okay, you're not all in, yet how can we help you to be? What's missing? And maybe we need to look more at the values of that person. And something's just not clicking yet. But if we were to get a little deeper, then that's when things can really open up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I got to send all these guys to PSI.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that is a really good opportunity too. And yeah. I mean, you and I got to talk about some really good books, Derek, of servant leadership and all that type of stuff too. And I think
I already ordered them for everybody.
I love you. Yeah. It's amazing. It's it's a growing thing. Cause same thing for me in my business, one of my best life coaches, I'll give him a shout out right now. Craig McGinnis, dude, he's rocking it in the physical realm and mental and emotional, even spiritual. He's going to, church is not the only representation of spiritual, by the way, but he is doing his best to grow in his spirituality with God and his wife. Love that. But in the midst of all that, he's got a baby now and he's very overwhelmed with his house and all that type of stuff. So he's been missing a lot of meetings and not texting or calling. And it doesn't have to be long. So that now if I look at me, it's okay, where am I not giving support in the right way? Maybe when I make a call to him to support him, but the conversation goes for 10 minutes instead of 5, maybe I'm taking away from what he could be doing with his child. Right. Yeah. So that's just the cool, honest, forever feeling, ing, it's always growing. It's not, you've grown. Look at me, I'm grown. No, it's forever growing. So yeah, I think that's just a good thing to look at for all business owners and people that are trying to grow themselves in their industry.
Yeah. I like what you said about how you need to constantly keep growing yourself. Cause that's the thing. It's you don't want to be the business owner who works and builds, and then they just sit on the couch and let everybody else do all the work. The goal is I should at all times, my goal is to be working on the next phase of what we need to be doing in the future, so that when the phase comes, that's ready for them. Sure. I mean, how long ago did you guys hire your first employee, Tony?
I want to say probably around year 2. So it's been 3 years since we hired our first employee. It was when we joined Arate with Ed Milet and Andy Frisilla, and we hired Jacinda and Allison at the same time. Allison didn't work out. We ended up letting her go. Jacinda moved into an Airbnb spot and realized she had more entrepreneurial values, and so she wasn't as good of a fit for somebody we needed consistently in the office. And since then, there was a moment in time shortly after that we sort of fired our contractors that we had 1099'd, and we brought one guy who's been consistent in our business in as an administrative assistant, Ryan. And Ryan, he can outwork anybody as far as his ability just to get on something and just keep stay at the computer.
He's a killer.
Filling out paperwork, getting things done, driving back and forth to places.
Little tank.
Yeah, I want to see, I know you guys obviously and you didn't choose the path, but obviously like you guys didn't have it all figured out as you did it. But like now you guys have employees who are almost touching like, multiple six figures. Like, I mean, like that's exciting. Like I'm imagining my business now. Like I just had our first employee who was able to step away from their job and work for me full time because their income surpassed what they were making at their job. And their old job was like hard labor outside in the winter in the heat. Like, so it was just a fantastic thing to see that switch. But it's like, I'm like trying to, that classic thing they say, they're like, your dreams should be so big it intimidates you. I'm always bad with that because I don't want to set an expectation that's so far beyond my reach. But at the same time, it's like I'm watching these things and like it's not that crazy that you can do things like that. Obviously, you guys have done that, like so with your employees, like to just be growth minded enough that like we can get all of my coaches to 6 figures or something over the next 2 years. Like I said, inside your business, do you guys 1099 everybody, or are you finally doing W-2s or anything like that?
I have a couple W-2s or a few W-2s, but mostly 1099s. And I'm sure Jim's heard me say this before. I don't know if I've shared this a few times on a podcast, and I don't know if you've heard it before yet, though, Derek. It's just Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. Ed Milet was up speaking during Arete, and he was just like, "What's the most important thing in your business?" Somebody said sales. He's like, "Nope." Somebody said marketing. He's like, "Nope." They went through a handful of things. He's like, the most important thing is scaling. And he's like, how many people are upset now that I said that? But he was basically explaining how when you hire people, they have a vision for their life. Mm-hmm. And if your vision can't fit their vision inside of it, then they will leave, especially if they're growth minded. Yeah. And so in order to continue to keep your employees happy, you're going to have to keep scaling your vision, which creates more responsibility. It's sort of I don't know, I wouldn't call it hypocritical, but it's like people are like, I want to scale my business so I can have more freedom. It's like, well, you also have more responsibility with that freedom. And so unless you find the CEO/COO to take your position, who's the absolute rock star, so that you have good core leadership, you're going to have to be the core leadership, which means you're going to have bigger, more interesting problems as you become a larger company.
Yeah, that's how I felt a lot this year. We hired these employees, and my thought was like, this is going to make things easier. And then immediately it made things so much harder. I was like, and not because of any lack of effort on their part, it just added so many new things to learn and so many new things to find out and so many mistakes to be made and so many things like that. It definitely makes things a lot more difficult.
Yeah. Well, look at that too. Like, I don't know why I wrote this down, like scaling, which I have heard this before, but just the way that you said that, Tony, is really perfect. And then like the vision must be able to fit other people's visions inside of it. So therefore your vision has to continue to grow. Like mine's freaking huge, right? Like 1,000 coaches, 100,000 plus clients, like that are growing together. And it's like, wait, like, so what does that look like? And then you look at like, where are the other people's visions? And that made me think of like Derek and like how there's so much like symbiotic relationship. Symbiotic, for anybody that doesn't know, is where an organism advances the other organism. They advance each other. And it's like this crazy cool thing. And I feel that with all of us, honestly, like we are always helping each other grow selflessly. There's like, I don't have to gain it all. I will gain just from knowing that you're rocking it out. Right. But that just makes me think too of like, man, as we all continue to do this, like, it's as if like our paths like cross so much. And like, sometimes our businesses work together and it's like, man, like that's how it happens. That's the scaling right there. Cause I thought of too, like with Craig or other life coaches, it's like, what do you want? Maybe they have a vision and they acquire like, oh, I have 2 rental properties in there. And like, what does that look like? And how many dates you're going on with your wife a year? And like all that type of stuff. Cause I like to make visions yearly. But anyways, like, okay, how can Abundance Life like help you do that too? Cause like, I don't know, it just gets me really like pumped up. I got goosebumps right now just thinking about like people being able to get what they want, because it is possible to do that, Yeah. So yeah. I just thought about like working with Hercules and like all those types of things. Like, I feel like that's coming.
Parker says, I know you do a lot of meetings with Parker. I was on the phone with him for like 45 minutes last night. And Parker literally said the same thing to me, because it was kind of crazy. So I've mentored Parker since he was like 16 years old. And now he's like 21 and he's killing it in every way.
He's a monster,
but
dude.
we were kind of joking about it, but it's like we look back like 2-3 years ago, and like almost everybody in this circle we're kind of all in is the same people we were all kind of around. Like more of us have met over the years, but it's like it's the same circle of the same people, and it's just everybody's just like 10x their life along the way. Like like it's not like there's been that many new people, and it's not like there's been like that many people that fell off. And like at least the people I'm around, like I said, it feels like so many of these exact group people, and I do think there's a lot to that. Is that because the people around us go up like one stair step, then the rest of us make our way up one stair step. And there's a few people in our group we're lucky to have, like Tyler's and Tony's and Dakota's, who are a couple stair steps ahead of us. So we can really like, lifeline our way up there and be like, hey, I'm about to hire employees. Can you give me ideas of how this should work and things like that? Like it makes every bit of the path easier, but also it's almost motivating, because like if you're racing, if you're doing like a foot race with your buddy, you see him start speeding up ahead of you, all of a sudden you find the third gear, you finally catch back up to him. I think it's a nice thing about having all these people around us.
Well, that's cool too. Like when the people that are ahead of you, like their humble, beautiful posture is like, in a way, always looking forward, always growing. But like the only time they're looking down on somebody is when they're reaching down there to pull them up with them. Yeah. Right. Just like, dude, like no matter what, they don't even let you like be an idiot.
It is interesting too, because there's some beliefs that I used to have when I was in college, and I was around that environment a lot more. And the belief was, if there are wealthy people making all this money, it should be redistributed. Everybody should have a piece of that money, or everybody deserves, housing, food, clothing, healthcare, all these sorts of things. And then not too long ago, I was watching something about economy, and they were explaining how property rights will exponentially improve an economy, because people know that if they work hard, they accumulate property, they actually have rights to that property. Somebody can't just come take it from you. And so then it was just showing how capitalism consistently over time, even though it creates a greater distribution between the poor, a greater difference between the poor and the wealthy. It makes some people extraordinarily wealthy, and some people choose not to do anything or not to change their situation. They end up being poor. It creates a greater distribution, which makes people upset, because comparison is the thief of joy, and so they're looking at these folks who are doing really well, getting very upset with them. However, as a whole, it lifts up the entire economy. And so the belief that I've started to consistently feed is the belief that an economy that is improving is actually helping everyone. Everyone has, if you have a cell phone, you have more information than Bill Clinton had when he was president, even if you're like a kid in the middle of nowhere, and let's just say Ecuador. If you're in the mountains somewhere and you have a cell phone, you have access to more information than the president 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I get so interested by that sometimes, and like I feel like I have a damaged perspective on it, and like, but then I realize that I don't know, maybe my thought process, I feel ugly when I think it, but like I don't know, I don't want to say some people don't deserve certain things. That's not what I mean by this. But like as I grew up, I remember having all these people around me, they're all like, we're gonna be millionaires and we're gonna work and we're gonna do this. And then like you just see different lifestyle habits, and you see it directly correlate to where people end up. Like I remember, like I know people like it really is that putting off gratification thing that I think is more important than almost anything we'd ever talk about. Because like I remember when we were young, we'd have money and like people would spend it right away, and then there's people that would save it, there's people that would invest it. But like I remember I had this buddy, and this is like a short example, but like he got his tax return, and he had a job where he didn't have to work every day, he just worked when he needed money. And because he got his tax return, instead of using it for something useful or doing anything with it, or just having like some backup money, he's like, sweet, now I can take 3 weeks off work. Like that was like the way his brain thought, was like it was like just any chance he got to like give himself an utter complete break from work, like he would just take. He was never worried about getting ahead, never worried about setting himself up for anything, no backup plan, nothing, just always the easiest route at all times. And then there's other people I know that back then that were even ahead of like, me on the investing side, where like all the tax returns went into investments. So, all their extra money went into investments. And obviously now I see them far ahead of, It's awesome. But I said it's so interesting. I don't know. I'm sure it comes from trauma. I'm sure it comes from something. But I get so interested sometimes with the way that like some people have such like a detest towards money and such a detest towards like the success mindset, such a detest towards like some of my old friends that I used to spend a lot of time with. I remember when I was becoming successful, they would tell me sometimes like, Derek, can you just not talk about money tonight? And I'd like, so like it would hurt
You've
me.
lost yourself.
I'm like, I don't talk about money. I talk about like my business, what I do for a living. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't play video games. Like this is what I do. This is my thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do you want me to talk about? There's like makeup shit I don't know. Like it's always been a weird thing for me to like understand.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't want to cut Jimmy off.
No, you're good. I literally was just gonna say that like in money, like we talked about on the last podcast with Eric, like you literally either attract money or you repel it. There's no neutral. Just like you're growing or you're dying. Like,
yeah.
Well, I was gonna change the perspective a little bit. You know, I know that Derek's a fan of Jordan Peterson, so I'll do my Jordan Peterson impression. He was like,
let's go.
He was like, you know, I've studied the data, I've looked at all of this, and I've found something that I have a theory on it. I can theorize this, and I don't have any bloody data. I don't have the way to explain this, but I've noticed that disagreeable young men would rather say, you know, screw you, I'll just go play video games. You know, I don't, why should I work for you? Why do I need to go work, 40 hours a week and bust my butt so you can make another dime? I'll just sit at home. And so he basically said, with people who are like that, disagreeable young men who they need the payoff to be so great that it creates action in them.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of doing something productive, they would rather do nothing unless you start with, okay, well, what would be worth working for? Or what if you could have it? Would you be willing to struggle towards? I think I'm more of an example of that than somebody like Dakota. Dakota was like, I'm going to go do landscaping. And I was like, why? And he's like, I'm making money. And I'm like, yeah, but you're working like hours a week. And he's like, and it's great. And I could start my own landscaping company someday. And I'm like, I think you're picking the wrong vehicle. I think you need to do some more research and think about it some more. And he just worked hard and then went to the next thing and worked hard and went to the next thing and worked hard and always had like this optimistic mindset where he was like, it's all going to work out. It's all going to be great. And I spent a lot of time being like, I'm not sure if this thing is actually worth suffering for or not. And so it would take me so much time to get started. And then once I did get started, I was like, this is not it. Like I started
I'm done.
a fight club, quit. So I started a lot of things and quit because they were like not the right vehicle. But that was just my perspective on it for, Derek, if those folks are not doing anything, it's because it could be because they don't have a vision of what they don't even believe it's possible for them to like have a nice house. They don't even think that's possible.
Right. That's well said. Spot on, man. Guys, it's already freaking 2:28.
Uh-oh.
No, see, this is full of raw, amazing, organic, natural content.
Time's moving.
You guys are amazing.
No, I love it. I love it.
That means, Tony, we're gonna have to have you on again because there's so many more things I want to ask you and talk about.
Yeah, Tony, I want to ask you before we get into our finishing touches. I always like to ask a little question at the end of the podcast.
Yes.
I think you'd have a good perspective for anybody who's working. We're always talking about like business and money and things like that, and I love those things. But for someone like you who does have a little bit more insight and maybe like a mental, emotional, feeling good, things like that, and like success mindset, what are like a few of the favorite books of yours that you would recommend that you think are super, super beneficial? Some of the ones that like really stand out to you.
I started with Elliot Hulse. Back in the day, he was on YouTube. He said, turn your car into a library. He's a little bit more controversial and politically split now. Back when he was just helping people become the best versions of themselves, he started me off on how to win friends and influence people. That was my introduction to personal development. Shortly after that, this one's a little bit more controversial, and you should probably throw out like 30% of the womanizing type stuff that's in it.
Okay.
The majority of it is fantastic. Like one of the first lessons in this book is live as though your father is dead.
Wow.
And so basically he's just saying, like, throw out the parental familial expectations. There are a couple other lessons right in the beginning that I'm just like, man, they're probably every chapter is only like a page and a half. And that is The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. Go on theartofmanliness.com and read The King, the Warrior, the Magician, and the Lover. You don't have to actually read the book. Just read their like blog post about those 4 archetypes of what it means to actually be a real quality man. So I was searching for those things. One interesting perspective on spirituality, it takes more of a turn. It might not be as comfortable for folks who are very traditional with their Christian faith, but it actually is still, the guy who wrote the book is still considered a Christian. It's called Conversations with God 1, 2, and 3. That was really interesting because he talked about how God can speak to us emotionally and spiritually through energy and those sorts of things as well as the word. And I think there's probably like a billion other books.
No, those are good.
Great list.
I love that. Like I said, so one thing we do here, Tony, at the end is
Wait, Derek, what are the 3 you want to share today?
Oh, sorry. Gosh, my brain.
There's one that you've been freaking rocking on, bro.
Oh man, buy back your time. And I know it sounds so business like focused because it is, but honestly, when it comes to the mental like thought process of your life, it's basically a book that talks about how people will put themselves in a state of value chasing and like overwork until they like have $1 billion business, but they die of a heart attack. And I think that's such a valuable book. I was enjoying the 48 Rules of Power, which I think is a very mental book. But that book, kind of like how you said, throw some parts of it out, Tony, of that other book. That book kind of felt ugly to me. It felt like it could be called like the 48 Rules of How to Take Advantage of People. But I think it'd be valuable for anyone to read so they can kind of see what other people may be doing to you in the world so that they can't take advantage of you. That would be, I wouldn't give it as a life book for like lessons for you to take. I would take it as a life book of like protection,
awareness
from what people will do to you.
What I've been told, that if you think about like the negative and the positive aspects, that how to win friends and influence people is the positive aspect. And then 48 Laws of Power is the negative aspect. So it's really like how to screw over friends and use them to your advantage. So exactly. But it's still trying to accomplish the exact same thing using different means.
Nice.
What about you, Jimbo?
Me, so 48 Laws of Power I need to look into. It's fun, like it's definitely not my vibe, but I think I need to maybe valuable to grow that awareness in that. First one would be Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. Very, very good at just like maximizing like communication, like how you're showing up. The second one is a little more on the sad side, but really enhances genuine appreciation. And I would say Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Frankl. Yeah, he was a psychiatrist that was put into concentration camps during the Holocaust, and like literally I won't tell you anything, but he says some really good stuff about like what the frick meaning is. And then the last one is Inside Out Coaching by Joe Ehrman. And like, he just kind of takes like Dorothy and Jesus Christ and like different, like of what he believes to be the best coaches ever. Dorothy from Wizard of Oz and Jesus Christ from the Bible. Like he does a really good job of like showing, instead of being a transactional coach, to be a transformational coach. And I think whether you're a coach or a business owner, whatever it is, coaching yourself and learning how to like dive into other people's lives is a really good thing to do.
I love that you just said the transactional coach versus transformational coach, because I literally am in Buy Back Your Time. They talk about that's one big thing I've realized I'm trying to do in my business is to be, like I said, it's a transformational leader versus a transactional leader, and like it's super powerful. I love it. Well, as I was going to say, like I said, Tony, you might know this, you might not, but we finish every one of these podcasts with prayer. And if somebody is not comfortable with praying out loud, we just say a few things that you're grateful for in your day-to-day life. So I'll start, Tony, you can go second, and Jimmy will finish. Beautiful. I love it. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for this beautiful moment to spend time with these beautiful men. We have had a beautiful conversation, and I have so much to take away from this right now and put in my day-to-day life. I want to thank you for the blessings that I've received this last week and blessings to come over the next week, and then bless these men as they go through the next week of their life.
God, thank you for mindset. Thank you for the continual pursuit of becoming the best versions of ourselves and leaning into your nature, which is abundance, so that we can be who we want to be, do the things we want to do, and have all the things that we like to have, as long as they are serving us, because we are using them to help others and to show them light and love.
Wow. Merciful Lord, I'd like to second everything that my brothers in Christ here have diligently noted, Lord God. I thank you so much for your love, for your abundance that you share with us so freely, Lord God. It's so amazing. And I love just really the constant theme of this entire podcast today, Lord God, that I heard with personal development, growing yourself, growing others, and the balance between that, Lord God, that we can truly have fulfillment, Lord God. I know that sometimes we're chasing things, and instead of chasing, we can just become and attract. So, Lord God, I just pray for all of us to be able to continue to do our best, to be our best, and continue to grow in that, Lord, and not to judge it so harshly, Lord God, but to rather just be and enjoy, Lord God, that we can celebrate the small successes, that we can see how far we've come instead of how far we have to go, Lord God, because the race isn't over, and I'm thankful to be running this race with you, that you're with us all the time, that your relentless presence continues to fill me up and fill us up, Lord God. You're so amazing. And yeah, I pray lastly that you'll help Tony, Derek, and myself shift into the one gear that you know, and that's forward, never reverse. In your precious name we pray. Amen. Man, you guys are amazing.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I feel like I got like this much of my many questions for Tony out.
100%. We got to have
we really touched the surface. Like I said, I just need to like have an individual NLP session with both of you, just because, like I said, there's like a million questions. We're just gonna have another podcast that's just gonna be called like Derek Cracks, and it's just gonna be me crying the whole time while you guys.
I love you. Hey guys, pause for a picture real quick. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Nice.
I like it. I like it.
Whew.
Beautiful, beautiful day, guys. Beautiful outside. Let's all go enjoy it. I appreciate you both to death.
Yep, you too, Derek. Thanks for coming. Tony, love you so much. Thanks for being on here, man.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Love you, dude. Claire.